All right, today it looks like well, we got a pretty good crew here today. Everything working good here on my end. Yep, working good. All right, I'm going to show you guys something pretty cool that I did. First thing I'm going to go over today is oil regulators. All right, can you all see that?
Yeah.
Pretty typical oil regulator, right? Except for one difference. I've cut this one open. Check this out. This is what you see inside of them.
So that's where my oil leak comes from, Mark.
The guy on there, his name's Mod. That is my personal computer. And that's how it's streaming to YouTube.
Oh. I thought we had a guest speaker that was going to surprise us or something.
That's our guest. That would be our guest moderator.
Oh. All right. So we all have to behave.
No, it's an unmanned laptop sitting next to me.
Oh.
What's it moderating?
Yeah. So I guess I'm the moderator too. All right. So check this out. This is what's in there. And you think, wow, that's kind of fancy. Bring that down a little. Get this out of the way. You think, well, how the hell does that work? It's actually easier than you think. This float just comes off. It's literally just a float. And at the bottom there, it's got halfway through it's just a barrier. It's just a blank thing sitting in there. And it's just like a stopper at a certain point, a certain set point. And I don't think it can move. I haven't tested it, like how hard it would be to move. But what makes this thing actually adjust, believe it or not, and I didn't bring in a service wrench, so now it won't turn by hand, is this hexagon piece moves up and down. That piece moves up and down and lowers and raises this float, which then pushes against this spring, which has this little pin orifice in there. And then inside there, if you look, it's just a little hole that goes straight up to where the oil flows in. So this goes straight down into a chamber and it just pours out through that hole. And it just gets stopped by that little pin right there. And what I think happens when you know how when you go to where it hits the bottom and you're not supposed to go 10 turns past the top stop. What I think happens is that this thing, the ball hits the bottom of the plate and it strips out these threads because it's just brass threads. And once the threads are stripped, it will be stuck in the down position. So this hexagon rod can't go anymore. So I did take it all the way off. And let me show you what's in there. But that's how these things work.
Or if somebody decides to raise it all the way up, they could
right. Then it will go right.
Yeah.
So the way these things work is that we'll always set, when the level gets up high enough that this ball can push hard enough against that brass piece, it'll close off the line. So it's designed at a certain PSI. So let's just say you set it right there, wherever it's at now. I don't know where it's at. Say you set it right there, and your differential is your typical OCV 20. So you got a 20-pound differential pushing against here over to this side. And then this ball can float up a certain amount and it'll stop it. Well, if you raise the differential, it's enough pressure now to push this ball down a little bit and start feeding oil in until it's now got enough buoyancy to push up and stop it at that differential. That's why these things, let's just say it's a 20-pound differential and it's at whatever it's at, half sight glass. Well, if you raise the pressure, it'll raise the level because it has to now push harder against this to stop it. So you can raise and lower the level of these things by raising or lowering the pressure coming into it. So that's why they say there's nothing in there to break. It can't go out of adjustment. So that's why they say you never, ever adjust these things because you're just doing yourself a disservice. There's nothing in there to break or bend or, once it's adjusted, that's it. If it's not working, it's not the adjustment. Okay, that's what this is saying to us. It just isn't. There's nothing you can do. It's either broken and not working, or there's something else going on. And most of the time, you'll find is that it's the oil separator plugged up, not giving enough flow, but it'll get opened up. You're allowed to go up to the top stop on this because it will stop after that, but you can't. A little note on here will even tell you don't go more than 10 turns from the top stop. So if you counterclockwise this all the way till it stops and go 4.5 turns, that should be right about halfway at 20 psi differential. Okay. Any less differential and it'll be lower. Any more differential, it'll be higher. But at 20 psi differential, that should be about halfway. Nothing you could, adjusting this will never do you any good. Most of the times we find that these become a problem are you're having oil fail problems and it's like the sock or something is torn in there. And so, you guys will get out of a jam overnight or whatever, and you'll pump in oil, and then more oil gets pumped in, and more oil gets pumped in, until next thing you know, the oil's coming back through the suction line. It's going through the system and coming back through the suction line, and that's where we run into the problems. Because next thing you know, if you're still having oil problems, somebody else will find like, okay, well, it's too high now. The level's too high because they're looking at the oil level and sure enough, it's up too high. And they think, okay, well, I got to turn this float down. Well, it's not going to do you any good. If it is the float, it's broken, But it's really what's going on is it's coming back through the suction line, filling up the compressor. So what we have is this problem. It gets lower down and then lower down and lower down until you get past the bottom. And once you get to the bottom, it's done. It's cooked. You can't recover from it. And let me see if I can find something to take that all the way to the bottom and see what happens. some tools. A little crescent wrench here. So that's all. I always thought there was more to it than this, but clearly I was wrong. So let's send it down to the bottom. You'll notice that this silver or this brass hexagon thing is actually moving. It's actually coming out. I think that it just falls off the end, but when these fail, they definitely fail into the closed position when you turn it to the bottom stop. I think what happens is it gets past that. Well, maybe not. Let's see. There's a little O-ring in there, and voila, it's fallen off. So this thing moves up and down. So what we think happens, and I'm not really sure. I'm thinking that it hits the bottom and the threads strip, or it pushes that thing through. I'm not sure, but man, you turn this thing to the bottom and it jams up on you. There's no returning from that. It's just done for. So it's just a threaded little thing here with a rubber O-ring that just pushes its way in there. And then this slides up and down in there. So I thought that'd be kind of interesting to take a look at. If I can get my hands on one of the Henry's ones, I will check. I'll test one of those too. I'll cut it open the same way. I'm guessing it's the same setup. I mean, why wouldn't it be? These guys probably just copy each other.
Surprised it's just a few floating parts.
Yeah. I thought there was some sort of float with a lever and all this stuff, but no. That's it. So maybe if it and I do know this thing does hit the bottom of the float of the thing. So maybe it does push this thing through, or I don't know. When you get to the bottom, if you don't stop, it ruins these things. But I thought it'd be more dramatic than that, and no, it's not. Now it's at the top stop, and you can see it's still solid in there. This still works fine. So you can go to the top, but you can't. Still springs on there. So just remember that. Well, remember, first of all, there's no need to be adjusting this. If you feel there's a problem inside this float, you're going to replace it. But yeah, that's it. This thing just sits there. So that was a kind of interesting. So yeah, now you know, don't go screwing around with this thing.
Hey, Mark, so what's the difference between the 20 and the 60?
The what?
What's the difference between the T20 something versus the 60? I know there's a, and then
So you have to look at the directions, but they're like a linear motion, and you have to look at the specs, and it has to have to do with the pressure. I think this, God, it's been a long time. I can look up the specs and tell you exactly. The 60, I think, is 0 to 60 PSI or something like that. It'll flow, but don't take my word for that. Just look up the specs on it.
Okay, yeah, because I was looking at the because I was having a problem with one. I thought that was that, but okay.
This one is a OL60 AE.
Oh, okay.
I do remember that the AE means like it's like the length of this here. And those numbers mean different things. It's like the length of this and whether it has the different angles of where you hook it up. Some of them come out the back, some come up the side, up the top.
Yeah, so basically the function is the same, right?
It should be, but you always want one that will work with the pressure that you're working with.
Yeah, but the idea is the same.
Yes. Yeah, they're the same thing. The 60 is probably like a 0 to 60 psi or something like that operating pressure. That would be like the differential. What I would like to find is the ones that are non-adjustable. Preset, halfway, 20 psi differential. And then everybody's forced to have to deal with it, you know. Either that or I'm going to start welding these caps on, setting it and getting an arc welder and putting a tack on that thing. There's no reason to ever be adjusting it. It's once it's set, it's set. And now you can see why. There's nothing in there to like go out of adjustment. There just isn't. It's just a float with a little thing on the end. You know, not like parts can't get bent or anything. I suppose it could, you know, go bad by, and I never tested it, but inside there's that like halfway stopper piece thing. Like if that was to move or something, then it would go off. You know, the float would go crazy. You know, it would be way off. But if that thing does move, you're gonna have to replace this thing because if it moved once, it's gonna keep moving on you. So that I could see, you know, making it go out of adjustment. But again, if it does go out of adjustment because of that, it's trash. It's time to throw it in the trash, you know. Get a new one type of thing. So I just thought that was interesting. We cut that open and it I was kind of blown away what I saw. I was not expecting that.
Yeah, Sportland recommends the OCV 20, but you can do OCV 5 all the way to a 35.
Yes. And now if you were to change that, then you would have to adjust it.
Yes. And
because it works off of the pressure differential.
To adjust that, they should have the compressor off, adjust it, have it settle, and then, you know, don't adjust those with the compressor running. You'll never get them.
And then also another thing to note on those, on a Carlisle compressor, it has to be at least halfway. Anything below half, and I'll show you what happens on this particular one. So if you look at, let's say, oh shoot, I turned that camera off. Let me bring it back down. Okay. So you look at here and you got a pretty flat, you know, tube there. The thing is on those Carlisles, you notice that it's got an adapter with a threaded tube on it. And that threaded tube, you guys have all done a Carlisle where you unthread the piece out of the Carlisle compressor and you notice there's a white gasket, right? Like a plastic, I guess neoprene or whatever gasket. Well, I don't know if you've also noticed, but that gasket interferes with that. It actually is a smaller hole than this. And so that gasket comes up like blocks like that much of it. So if you've got it, you know, a third glass or whatever, and you see oil there and you think, okay, well, it's compressor's obviously that full. If it's a Carlisle, That's not necessarily the case. And then when you squish that gasket in there by the threads, it may even squish even more. So you want to make sure on the Carlisles, just bring them up to halfway. And you will avoid that that little issue. But yeah, learn that one the hard way. No oil pressure in a Carlisle compressor. You know, sure, clear as day, it had a third sight glass, had plenty of oil. Well, it was a third sight glass on that regulator, and there was literally no oil in the compressor. So just keep that in mind. It's a little bit has that offset on it. And that offset is at where it's the part screws in to the Carlisle. You'll see it next time you do a Carlisle. Take a look at it. You'll see what I'm talking about. It's a higher, like the hole is smaller going into the Carlisle than actual that hole is. So just be careful on that.
Is Carlisle the one that has the two gaskets that if you forget one, it'll for sure leak?
Yeah. It's got the one squared off round one, and then it's got like the indentation for the round one.
Two.
Yeah, and then it's got the threaded part that goes threads into the compressor. Yep, that is it.
And then also your sight glass needs two gaskets. Otherwise, those will leak. It takes the
one
and the round flat style one for the oil sight glass.
Yeah, and you'll notice it because it'll have a groove on each end. Whereas if you've got a groove on the sight glass cover and a groove on, if you've got two grooves, it needs two gaskets. If you've got one groove, it just takes one gasket. So one groove up against a flat surface, that's one gasket. That's all you got to remember. Just each groove gets a gasket. And if you want it, if you do need two gaskets, make sure you use one of the squares and one of the rounds. You probably noticed that the square ones have like an indentation for the round one, so it fits perfectly and it'll seal real good. All right. I was able to start sharing again with my whiteboard, so that's great. I've got her up on the screen right now. This is the end. That was the end of our EMS. I'll kind of go over it, and then for the rest of the time here, I'm going to go over. Let's see, who do we have here? I'm going to go over some electrical stuff. Some of you guys, it's going to be a refresher. Some of you guys are, it's going to be good for you. Looks like our moderator's giving us the thumbs up. Moderator loves us. All right. Okay, let me go over there. I got to go around my desk to the whiteboard. I'm just going to go real quickly over this, and I'm going to erase everything. And we're going to start over on we'll start over on some control circuits and troubleshooting, means of troubleshooting. I know that it is again, that's going to be a refresher for some of you, but you know what? It can't hurt you to suffer through it. Okay, over here at the whiteboard now. Remember we talked about how our controllers are nothing. Our whole controller systems are a robot, indicated by our little robot guy here. The brain being the controller, and the eyes, ears, nose, feet, touch, everything else are the appendages there. So the brain needs some information, so it gets it from an AI board, let's say. Let's call this an RO board. So the AI board says, hey, the suction pressure is going up. We need to turn a compressor on, tells the computer goes out and sends a signal to an RO board, turns it on. That's like the foot kicking a switch or something. Or even a hand. Let's call this an RO board too. So AI board feels the suction pressure going up. Yeah, the RO board will turn the switch on, turns the compressor on. That's how you got to look at them. I found that's the easiest way. That may or may not help you. Everything is in a daisy chain pattern. You can't do a star formation. In other words, I cannot take another board off of this board and put a third wire coming out to another board. That's a no-no. Okay? That would be called a star formation. That's a no-no. Everything is the daisy chain like this. The first unit and the last unit have termination, jumpers or switches or whatever they have. It just tells the controller, I don't know how. I learned it way back when they started coming out, when I went to the control school, how it works. I just don't remember. It's not important really, but it knows that that's the end of the line, and it's constantly sending pulses out. The computer's reading those pulses as a language, and it's sending out its own pulses, and the boards are responding to those pulses. So just remember, always a daisy chain, never a star formation. Our different types of controls are an analog out, a digital out, or a relay output. It's we know them better as ROs, but it's a digital output. Digital meaning on or off, analog meaning a variation in between 2 points. A 0 to 10 output for a drive, and anywhere in between 0 to 10, digital on off. We also have analog ins, that's the inputs, transducers, sensors, light level sensors, RH sensors, and that is another analog. It's a variable voltage between usually 0.5 volts and 4.5 volts, 0.5 volts being the 0 mark, and 4.5 volts being whatever transducer you've got. If it's a 0 to 200, 4.5 volts would be 200. If it's 0 to 500 and so on, you just put 0 to 500, 4.5 volts would be 500. If you wanted to know, let's just say you have a 0 to 200, and you want to know if it's putting out the right voltage, and you've got it, say you look at your gauge, it's 100 PSI, it's going to be what? 2.5 volts. It's going to be right in the middle. So anywhere in between is your output. So why do we use 0.5 and 4.5? That's a safety, so that it knows if the sensor is bad. It's designed that if it's got no voltage, it'll send out an alarm. That means the sensor wire has been cut, it's lost power, something's happened, and there's no voltage. It needs to see between 0.5 and 4.5, and that's the range in it. No voltage means there's a problem. Anything over 4.5, it's like, okay, there's a problem. If it goes over 5, they're set up to an alarm also. But the main concern on these is the lower one. We just want to know if that sensor has been failed or unplugged. And that's the reason why you can unplug a sensor on a controller and it goes to an alarm. It'll say none. It says none. It doesn't say 0. It says none. It knows it because 0.5 is 0. Okay, and then we go on to, let's see, analog out, analog in, digital in. And I don't have one drawn, but a digital in is just a switch. I think I had it drawn here last time, but maybe it was here. Anyhow, a digital in is just a point on the board here that reads a switch, and it would go like this, come out of it, and go to common. So it's just another signal for the controller telling it if something is working. What are those good for? How about a door switch? If it's closed, the door's closed. If it's open, the door's open. That's one reason, one way. Termination. Okay. Case gets warm enough, all the terminations close, it makes a circuit. Case is warm enough. Go ahead and terminate it for defrost. Digital inputs would be like a current transformer or current sensor, a CT. Typically, and we're moving away. We're moving more to the analog type sensors, I've noticed. But in the old days, it was always just a closed sensor. Side switch on a contactor. You know, you could have a side switch saying, "Hey, the contactor's closed. Send a signal. Send it right over to the controller. It wants the information." And that's your digital inputs. Any questions on that? You're going to erase it. It's going bye-bye. All right, let me get a towel. Have it here. Let that glass cleaner dry off for a second. Nice fresh canvas here. Oops, got a magnet. Got a magnet jumping it. Oops, I'll just put them over there. This thing's magnetic, so we can put cool stuff on there. The magnets broke off that. Put cool stuff on here like this relay. My glue is snapping off. All my props are messed up. I'm gonna have to draw them. Yeah. Oh well. My props are breaking. Sorry, guys. I notice a lot of times I get some questions. Trying to figure out your control circuits. Control circuits are very easy. Typically, this will be a 15 amp circuit. .208 volt. You don't ever want to go above 15 amp on a control circuit. And the reason is if you go over 15 amp, you have to use by code number 20 gauge wire on everything below that. We in the industry like to use 15 gauge stranded wire because I don't know if you've ever tried to put a 20 gauge control wire into an RO board. It doesn't fit. It doesn't work. So 15 gauge works fine. The code says if we are using 15 gauge wire, we cannot go over a 15 amp breaker. All breakers are sized to the wire size on the other side of them. Its sole job is to protect the wire. And that is the job of the breaker. It will trip before the wire catches on fire. Okay, if you're ever trying to size something up, keep that in mind. You also have to keep in mind, you know, if it's what's on the other side of the circuit, we will never have anything that will draw close to 15 amps on a control circuit. If we do, we need to look into that and get that fixed because it should be on something other than a control circuit. Control circuits should have little half amp draws on contactors, that kind of thing. This is on every type of system for the most part, unless you're working on a protocol or a super plus. Protocols and super pluses use a 120 volt circuit. It's kind of cool to troubleshoot with your little pocket volt stick because you can, or even just going to ground to just find where the power ends. That's your open circuit and the problem. They're nice like that. But the reason we don't use that in most racks is because in order to have a neutral here, it needs a feed from either a separate panel, and if you do that, you have to put all these tags and stickers on the panel to pass UL saying, you know, there's more than one circuit shut off. So on most racks, for the most part, you're going to see a 208 control circuit simply so they can get this power straight off of the main breaker. Why can't we just pull a neutral over? Code says you can't. I mean, you can, but the neutral has to be the same size as your main feeds. So let's just say you've got 3 208 volt feeds coming in and they're 500 MCM. You would need a neutral, same size. And it would come down to a terminal. It's kind of silly. You're going to see this on protocol racks. You're going to look like, why did they do that? It's to pass code. So the neutral will be a 500 MCM going to a terminal block with a 15 gauge wire coming off of it. It's the funniest thing. Next time you go look at a protocol, take a look at that. You'll see what I'm talking about. It's hilarious looking. But that's why. So back to what I was saying, we're going to have a 15 amp 208 volt circuit on most everything. Troubleshooting a 208 volt circuit. Can you use your meter to ground to troubleshoot? Yes and no. It will tell you something and it'll throw you off if you do it. You will be searching and searching and searching, and it's going to throw you off. It is not a good idea. Yes, you can use a meter to a ground block to find out if you actually have voltage there. But let me ask you this. If I go here to ground, I'm going to show 120 volts if everything's working good. If I go here to line 2 to ground, I'm going to show 120 volts to ground. What that's not going to show me is, am I on line 1 or am I on line 2? You don't know. It'll throw you off. So do not try to find an open circuit by going to ground and checking across stuff like this. You're gonna get thrown off so bad. It's not even funny. Let me show you why. Here is just a circuit. I'm gonna go over here. We're gonna have a contactor coil and over there. Actually, I'm gonna move that because we're about to bury it. Move it over the edge. I like to draw everything on line 1 and line 2. It's gonna be varied. It's gonna be different and different area, different. But if you think of everything like this, you'll be fine. Okay. Contactor coil. That contactor coil will be turned on and energized if I turn that breaker on, right? So what do? We can't just have it running all the time. So I'm not going to put in the toggle switches right now. We'll say that for another day. We don't have a lot of time. I'm going to put in a low pressure switch. Okay. Pressure goes up. It makes the circuit, right? I'm going to also put in a high pressure switch. I don't know why I drew it. It's all funny, but let's just draw it. Somebody was drinking and they were wiring stuff up and it ended up looking like that. So now on this one, if the low pressure switch and the high pressure switch are closed, you're going to turn on your contactor. Let's say you go to the service call and it's tripped the high pressure switch. Uh-oh, compressor doesn't run. Compressor doesn't run. You get there and you're trying to figure out why it's not running. And so you go over here and you're thinking, okay, well, I'm going to take my meter and I'm going to check to ground. I'm going to find why it's not running. And you check here first. You're like, okay, I got 208. That's good. Good to go. Rings on 208. So you go over here to ground and you're like, all right, got 120, 120, right? If I lose it, I'm going to find it. So you check here. You got 120. You check here. Oh, you got 120. You check here. Oh, I got 120. You check here. What do you think you're going to get? You're going to get 120 coming backwards this way. So you check here. You're thinking, oh, God, what's going on? High pressure control is not open. I just checked it. No, you didn't. You didn't check it because it is getting this leg, which you can verify as 120. 120 there. We'll have 120 there. We'll have 120 there. The whole circuit's going to have 120. And you've just gone all around in a big circle, and now you're calling me for help. Don't call me for help. Is a way to do this. Only one way. And that's checking across it. Because remember, I got 208 here. It's ready to run. I got 208 here. It's ready to run. I don't have 208 here. Why? Because it's open there. But I have 208 to there. And I've got 208 to there. The reason you've got that open circuit is because, yes, this is the line 1 wire, but it's going to come right through that coil. The coil is nothing but a coil. It's just wire. It's just a long wire going around an iron core. That's it. That's all it is. And so this reading here is the exact same reading you took here. You got 208 there, and you got 208 there. That circuit's open. Again, 120, 120, 120, 120, the whole thing, 120. You're never going to find out where it's open. You just aren't. So don't do it. Yes, you can find out, okay, do I have power? The first thing I would always do is come up and like, all right, well, I don't have power there, 208. All right, let's see if I got one leg or something. So go to ground. Oh, crap. I got nothing to ground. I got nothing there. Problems that way. Follow it. Go that way, not this way. 120 there. No 208 there. Could be that way, could be this way, but you still don't have 208. You check here. 208 there. No 208 here, but 120 here. And who knows, you might have 120, depending on the control circuit. You might have 120 here coming back. But you know the breaker's bad. One leg on the breaker's bad. That's what you've now determined it, right? Very easy. No 208, but I've got one leg. 208. Something in the breaker is bad, it's failed. You could try to reset it, see if that does it. If it does work, look deeper. There's something else might be going on. You know, breakers, yeah, they'll fail, but 9 times out of 10, they failed for a reason. Any questions? How are we doing on time? I don't want to hold you guys. How's the Dodgers doing? Anybody know?
Tied.
Tight game? All right. So, I'm going to call it there, and I'm going to come back in 2 weeks, and we're going to start coloring this in. What do I mean by that? We're going to add some stuff because every single system we've got out there is that easy. It just has some more switches in there. That's it. That is our circuit. That's every control circuit you're going to run into is like that. It's just got more shit in there in the one line right there. It's your job to find it. And then, it just add more compressors. This is contactor for compressor system. That'll be compressor 1, 1. Contactor 1, 2, and so on and so forth. It's all you're going to do is just keep adding them on. And then, what do you know? How about we put an RO board and a solenoid coil? It's the same thing. Guys, it's that easy. It really is. That's all it is. You think this wiring is complicated? Try looking on a Train YCD air conditioner. You're going to be pulling your hair out. This is nothing. You can master this in easily, guys, easily. But I'm going to leave it there. I'm going to come back to this, and we're going to add more stuff. We got low pressure, high pressure. Let's add an oil fill control. We'll start next week. I'll add an oil fill control and show you how to wire it. You literally are just going to put it in here. It's just going to go in this circuit. Yes, you need another wire coming across because you have to power it up on one leg, but it's still a 3-wire oil control is easier than a 4-wire, to be honest with you. I'll show you how. It's so easy, but 3 wires basic. Just remember, always make your oil fill control the last control. Just remember this on oil fill control. M, the terminal M, means machine contactor. L means line. That gets the line. You can remember that. Oil fill controls are nothing. Easy peasy. Easy peasy.
Hey, Mark, do you film these or you just stream them live?
It saves.
All right. I showed up.
You know what? And I'm gonna hold on. So I'll be right back with you. I'm gonna save this because I want to show you how an oil fill, at least the old school ones. If you can learn an old school oil fill control and what's going on inside there, and I'm gonna start on that next week. That's gonna be perfect because I want to draw it big so you can see what's going on there. I'll erase compressor too. This is gonna be a single on this one. We're working on a single today. I'm gonna add that oil fill control and all the little wiring that goes in with it. And that alone takes a little bit of time just to draw it. But if you see it from nothing and then drawn into the actual circuit, it's going to make a lot more sense of what's going on in there and why you're having the troubles. It's going to help you with oil fails. So, teaser, join me. Next show. All right. We're going to do the wheel of names. Wheel of names. Oh. Oh, my whole live stream this whole time has had this stupid little warning on it. Oh, well. We'll get over it. All right, who do we got today? All right, is there any questions on that before I move on to the spin? Who was asking the question earlier? I was on the other side of my computer.
It was me. It's Matt. I was late. I just showed up like 5 minutes ago.
Oh, okay. I go ahead and give me your. I'm gonna need your email. I have to add. I need your Gmail account if you have one.
Yeah, I have one.
Okay, text me your Gmail account and I will add you onto the live stream.
Okay, and I'll be able to view what you did today on there.
Yeah, it's live streaming right now. You're gonna hear us talking.
Okay, cool.
And keep saying my microphone is muted. This thing is irritating. Ignore
Just
it.
don't put me on the wheel though, because I just got in. I'm not worthy.
Oh, that's right. You have to have attended. I don't remember what the rule is, but I want to say it was 20 minutes. So you are ineligible. You are disqualified. DQ'd.
Sheesh.
You are DQ'd. Scott. Who won last time? That was Art, huh?
Yeah, I think it was Art.
Yeah, R1.
Matt, sorry, you are DQ'd. Deleting you here. Francisco, are you here? You are not here. Damn, somebody's gonna be an easy winner here. Charlie,
Francisco,
good to
what?
see you.
Thanks, Mark.
Juan, good to see you. Oopsie, what did I do? Juan, Johnny. Good looking out. All right. Don't forget to tune in next week. All right. And for the before we go into the spin, I'm going to sign off here on YouTube. No need to show that. Anyhow, thanks everybody. Don't go anywhere, guys. thanks everybody for showing up. And this will end our AVP refrigeration live stream on YouTube.
Thank you for having us, Mark.
You missed it, Scott. It's ended.